Okay, so we're gonna take a little dive into sculpting characters using our subtool palette. We're gonna take our Sphere 3D and we're gonna change this topology on it, and we're gonna set it up as a Dynamesh, and then we're gonna use multiple instances of this to go ahead and create our basic outline of our character. Then we'll remesh that so we can start sculpting. This is gonna be a really quick, intuitive way to work. And so I want you to just try and follow along, and let's see what we can come up with. I'm going to kind of freestyle this, right? So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take this Sphere 3D and make it a polymesh, and you see it initializes and turns purple, but we still have this pucker up at the top, right? And so that's why I want to explore this Dynamesh settings. You see when we hit Dynamesh, it actually just crushes all of that pucker and gives us some pretty even topology. So I'm going to turn on my X symmetry and grab my move and go ahead and just start. I'm just going to play around with this. So I'm going to make a basic torso shape. I'm going to turn off polyframe so we can see what we're doing. Now every time I'm holding control and swiping, it's going to reinitialize the Dynamesh. So if you look at this, let's do a major change in topology. You see all that stretching and banding has now been unified, right? So again, I just held control and swipe, and it will fix up any of those massive stretchies in your topology, right? And give you something fairly distributed and even to work on, which is great for sculpting in Zbrush, right? Okay, so here's our basic shape, right? So I'm going to say that that's the head. I'm going to duplicate it, and now I'm going to start using transpose, right? And so one of the things that I want to be careful of with transpose is making sure that I'm not using symmetry too much, except for when rotating. I need the symmetry to rotate the arms down or things like that, but when I'm moving basic parts, I want to kind of shut it off. And so I've hit X, and then transpose lines, they kind of move in space, so I can drag one into the depth right here. The best way to work with this tool, in my humble opinion, is to hold shift and drag outside, okay? And then now if we reinitialize the shift button, we're going to get it snapping on that axis, right? So if I hold shift as I drag out and then I move, I can move anywhere, but if I hold shift, it's going to snap to that direction, right? So this is very helpful. Scale can be really tricky. You don't get the kind of behavior you would expect. There's another way to get at scale down here in your deformations. We could just do size, right? But since we're in ZBrush and we're just sculpting, I'm going to make this the neck, reinitialize, and just kind of futz around for a minute. Maybe he's going to be a hunched over character. Now if I hold Alt and click, I can switch between subtools, right? And so he definitely wants a bigger cranium. All right. So if I switch down again, Alt click, that'll switch me down. I'm just going to keep duplicating and adding pieces. So again, move. I'm going to turn X off, and since we've got a straight topology line here, I'm shifting again, shift and drag, and then pull down, right? Okay. Back to our draw tool, turn X symmetry back on, and let's get the body going. Now, the nice thing about the Dynamesh is that I can just beat this piece of geometry up as far as like roughing out a shape, and it's not going to give me any trouble because I can always just go ahead and reinitialize it with my click and swipe, right? My control swipe is going to reinitialize that geometry and give me plenty of stuff to sculpt with, right? So let's just make some more power moves on this. So he's going to be really like turtle-y, okay? But we'll keep with the turtle theme in our stuff and reinitialize. And then another real feature that I love is the clay polish. So, you could in the older versions of ZBrush, polished by crisp edges, and you know, you could get similar effects, but we can just go ahead really quickly and just get some nice sharp clean geometry, clean sculpting look from that button. And so here I go, I'm just kind of moving along here. Alright, and so let's put an arm in. So I don't need this big shape to put an arm in. I'm going to use the neck shape. So again, I'm going to duplicate. Now I'm going to move this guy off to the side. Again, I'm turning X off. I'm going to drag off to the side and down. This one doesn't need to be as precise. Let's get the basic shape going. So if I turn on X now, it's way off symmetry, because the symmetry line is, it's expecting it to be in the center. As soon as I turn on this local symmetry, we get our symmetry line back, right? And so now we're sculpting this thing like it's a symmetrical piece of geometry, which it is. It was just moved off the center line. Okay, so let me rotate this up so it's a little bit more arm-like. I can turn off X. So, alright, that'll do. Back to our draw mode. Now, again, our symmetry, you know, our symmetry is now completely messed up, but because it's expecting to be working on either side, I'm going to just let it go and go ahead and start pushing this arm around, right? And so this is going to be our rough placeholder for our arm, you know, and so what I might do is turn the resolution down on the Dynamesh, and you see that as we mess with this resolution slider, let's bring it way down, we're going to get different topology spacing. There we go. Now we've got some real low geo. That looks great. Turn polyframe off. Let's get, you know, because he's turtly, let's get a turtle fin going there. Okay, so we're going to duplicate this guy. And the mirror and weld isn't really working well at the moment, and so I'm going to just mirror it this way, right? So mirror in the X, right? And then I'm going to merge those two subtools, right? So let's make sure they're in the correct order here. So one on top of another, right? I'm going to just merge down. It's not undoable. Okay, so now we've got our X symmetry back, right? And we've got our two arms, right? And so now I'm just going to duplicate this tool and go ahead and move it down. So we've got our move, transpose. I'm going to turn off X again, and let's shift move it down. These are going to be our legs. So back into draw, X symmetry back on. Alright, now let's make this, since these are the feet, I'm going to have, or the lower fins, let's move them in and make them a lot turtlier. Alright, okay. Back over the head really quick. And let's crunch this down. Pull this out. Make a spot for the eyes. Switch to the neck. Let's just tweak this out a little bit so it's really coming right out of that spot. Back to the torso. And let's switch over to our clay buildup. Turn off our alpha. And then just go ahead and add that ridge for the back. Okay, there it is. Now we're going to have a little pucker in here. Okay, so these are all of my shapes, right, that I need to start sculpting. Now I can leave this just as is and go to town sculpting, but I wanted to show you the remeshing function. So I'm going to leave the symmetry on. I'm going to turn the resolution up. You know, let's try 356. And all right, wants 352. We're going to leave the X symmetry on, and we're going to hit remesh. It's going to calculate, and it's going to give us a whole piece of geometry. Let me solo it out. Okay, so nothing else is showing through. And there's our whole character, and this is going to give us you know, one piece of geometry. Let's look at the topology. It's got polygroups, right? We can use this to then go ahead and separate out these groups, or we can just go to town sculpting and then maybe go back into these pieces of geometry. But I think that this is a really powerful way to block out your character, because now I can go in here and just start working on my details, right? And I can subdivide this as much as I want and figure out, you know, very quickly I can make a few different instances of this to try and pre-visualize my character and figure out, hey, is this the guy that we want? Do we need more parts? You know, what's going on? And so, yeah, nice big box turtle. And that's that.